Hey, Zeb, thanks for joining.
Sure, Jeff. Great to see you, man.
Yeah, it's been a while. I know it's been quite a few years since we were both working at LeadGenius. Great memories, good times. You've been there now for what, almost 7 years?
Yeah, six and change. It'll be seven, I think, in August.
It's fantastic.
What a ride. Yeah, what a ride, man. We were working there together, I think, right after one of the Berkeley community break into the office and rummage through it. So, Berkeley.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that.
we
I
had
do. Yeah, that's like right,
streets.
right when I started. That was crazy.
Yeah. We got him on camera. Someone from the streets broke in and was raiding computers. So it's been a ride. Been a ride.
Yeah, yeah. After that day, I was like, okay, I better make sure I'm parked in a safe area.
Yeah. And then COVID hit, and then the office was no more. So that solved it for
Right,
us.
right.
I mean, it's been a while.
Well, I'm glad we're able to connect. You've been doing this for quite some time. I kind of lean on you as like the expert when it comes to data and data strategy. But before we get into it, I'm curious, maybe you could share with the audience what got you interested in data and what's keeping you interested in data?
Yeah, everyone needs it. Like every company, I mean, go to market data specifically, every company needs actionable information to go to market with. Account information, contact information, just it's such a necessity. And I think that's why I've stayed in it too, is everyone needs it. And then the space is kind of ever evolving, right? When I was at ZoomInfo, you had a competitive advantage by just having contact data on the people you wanted to talk with at your fingertips. That was back in the Nutanix days, or excuse me, not Nutanix, Net Prospects, the Net Prospects days.
Yeah.
Jigsaw, right? There weren't many out there. You could kind of count them on one hand. And if you had one, you could beat out your competitors. And then data got commoditized. Everyone started to be able to find really cheap contact data. You had Apollo come up. You had Lucia and LeadIQ, so many. And Rocket Reach, it's hard to name them all. And because of that, now the market has evolved into yet another signals and insights and triggers. So it's just cool to see kind of the industry change and also mirror consumer data, right? Like whatever marketers, B2C marketers are doing on the B2B side, we kind of get to see a glimpse into what the future might hold because it kind of trickles down to B2B. Very, very rarely, you might disagree, but I find very rarely are we on the forefront. It's kind of the consumer marketing is on the forefront, and then we kind of learn from that and you see this space grow. So yeah, I got into it because everyone needs it. I stick with it because everyone needs it. And I just enjoy seeing how the market changes and new vendors pop up and people find new ways to get information and use it. It's cool.
Yeah. I remember back in the day, I was at a response modeling agency and we were working with all kinds of large financial institutions. For us, marketing comes down to a couple of things: list, or really data, creative, offer, and timing.
Yeah.
You could have like tens in all of those categories, but if you're not doing well in the data category, it doesn't matter how good your list or your creative or your offer or even your timing is. You need to be able to reach out to these people with really good quality data and signals.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. It is really those three ingredients. I love that simplicity. It really is. One of the things I've heard a lot of folks, there's folks like Jordan Crawford and Scott Martinez. There's a bunch of guys that have really become more vocal and gained these great audiences on LinkedIn. One of the things I always talk about is product message fit. A lot of people talk about product market fit, but when you talk about the offer, product message fit is really key. The offer is completely dependent on whether you've got the right audience or not. And if you don't have the right audience, chances are it doesn't matter how great your data is on those people. If they aren't the right people, that's a problem. So yeah, it's kind of the underlying data quality obviously is key, but then even with using triggers and insights and signals and all these things, you got to have the right offer for the right audience and then know how to judge the timing. And there's so much new tech out there that can help you with those things. But yeah, you're right, man. It's those three things. It's true.
Yeah. Well, obviously that wraps up into like demand generation strategy. And I think it'd be great to get your perspective on like when it comes to a really good B2B demand generation strategy. From your perspective, what's one of the biggest challenges that you see firms facing right now?
Kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier with why I've stayed in the data space. Like the market is moving and these new offerings and solutions and triggers and insights are like popping up. And I think one of the biggest challenges I see is it's taking at least kind of the larger customers that we work with. And I think this trickles down to other folks that are more SMB on the smaller side. It's kind of operating under an old model. Like the demand waterfall of the 2000s, the 2010s, even like the first part of this decade, 2020, is it's broken. Right? So many people that we start talking with are still targeting by like job title and seniority and contact location on the contact side, and on the company side, industry and revenue and employee headcount. That's how they're still building their lists and their territories. And while some of that is still important, for it to be the entire basis of who you think is in your TAM, and then who is in your serviceable addressable market farther down the funnel, and then who you actually go after today in this moment, if you're still doing it based on those really high level parameters, back when I still worked at ZoomInfo, which were the only thing to do, and if you had it, you were good. If you're still doing it that way, if you haven't already felt it in your business, and I would guess that you have, you will soon. Like, it's just, you need to get smarter, and you need to get more intelligent with how you're building your audiences and segmenting and feeding that data back to your team. So the biggest challenge I see is people are still operating on these very high level parameters that they think make up an ICP, when in reality, it's much more than that now.
Yeah. Well, you definitely touched on like what some of the mistakes people may be making, or maybe not a mistake, but they're just slow to adopt. But as you see some of the more progressive people who are doing things correctly, what are you seeing them do differently or better than others?
Yeah, I think they're really starting to focus on, it is really where you apply signals and intelligence to what you're doing in the field, right? So a lot of people, when you think about signals and insights, there are so many, and there's so many different ways to apply them to your go-to-market. But I think the folks that are really doing it the best know which signals to use in which part of their process. So here's what I mean. Like, the things that I talked about, geography, employees, revenue, industry, those are like total addressable market. Those aren't even signals. Those are your standard parameters, right? That's how you can start to just first figure out, all right, how many accounts sort of are in this universe that I could potentially engage? Smart people are then going one step deeper, and they're saying, all right, well, how many of those accounts are actually in my target market today? Like, who can I actually address? Who can I sell to? Who is a meaningful customer? This is your serviceable addressable market. The signals that they're pulling in to identify those folks are things like, this is where we get a little bit more nuanced, like business model. Do they sell to partners? Do they sell direct? Do they, and I'm talking about customers that I would be going after as an example, like what is their model? How are they structured? These are things that Clay and all these AI agents are really good at helping you figure out, that typically a rep would need to do a ton of manual research to even determine. Tech stack, right? Again, what installed technologies are they using? Even this has become more commoditized, but it's still an easy one, right? HG used to sell that data set for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now you can get it through Apollo with your subscription, right? BuildWit is cheaper than ever, right? So you've got your installed technology, you've got your team sizes, your job functions, installed technology on websites, behind the firewall technology, certifications. These are like the different signals and insights that are helping you further fine-tune your market. And then again, continuing down the funnel where people are doing this really well, you then get into your high priority, right? So I know my overall addressable market. I know who I can service and reach out to, and like kind of target today, whatever I can sell to, where my service is really going to be appropriate. That's serviceable addressable market. And then there's your high priority. This is where classic intent used to come in, right? This is where Sixth Sense or Demand-Based will tell you, well, we can tell you, or Bombora, we can tell you which accounts are searching for you right now. And I think that model has become a bit lackluster. So people have started to look at and define higher priority by looking at signals like headcount growth, new hires, job postings, community activity. Common Room is a vendor that's really, really good at this. Website visitation at the account and at the contact level. The contact level is new within the last 12 or so months. Content engagement, researching 10Ks. These are the signals that you apply to figure out who's in market. And then you can do one layer deeper, which is when we get into the contact personalization. What are the skills this person has? Are they newly hired? Are they new to their role? Have they been at the company for a long time? Is their most recent previous company a customer of mine? But I know there's a bit of a long answer, Jeff, but these are the different ways that across each kind of step in your go-to-market funnel and strategy, you're applying these different signals. And I think a lot of time people get overwhelmed with all the different signals and insights. They don't know where to apply them. But in the way that I just described, smart companies are applying them at different steps, and allows you to focus on like, what signal do I need at this stage to help me plan my territory, plan my outreach, and ultimately engage. And I think the best orgs start to focus what signals and insights when, instead of getting overwhelmed by all the possibility.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's not only when, but it's also who, right? What signals do you want to leverage when you're talking to, let's say, not necessarily the decision maker within the account, but an influencer? So an influencer might be like very technically oriented, right? And there you might know that, oh, they're hiring XYZ person with these skills. Let me talk to them about how, let's say, our offering is technical, how it addresses that technical expertise that they're actually looking for, versus, let's say, the decision maker that is much more ROI oriented and wants to see the big picture. Maybe that's where like the 10K information could be very useful to leverage.
Yeah. Yeah. The amazing thing about things like Clay is you can cohort these people and then work to create unique messaging that I believe a sales rep should still tweak. We don't want to put all of our eggs in the AI basket to create messaging. We've already seen that can just create massive amounts of spam that people ignore. But if you're getting to create messaging for certain buckets, your decision makers, your end users, you're in the middle people that are evaluating. If you can create a tailored message for each of those folks based on the signals, these Clay agents, these other AI agents can really help you get that message right and do the research. That's really powerful. It's like responsible AI or responsible outreach using AI is where people are going to win today. If I were to name another problem or another challenge I see is people just completely relying on AI to write their messaging for them. It comes off spammy, it's not always relevant, and it's created a lot of noise, and people can now spot it. Like,
yeah, it's obvious.
Yes, it's obvious. So that is another area. People get excited about this, like, oh, I can save so much time. I can have AI just write the message for me. You still got to do the work. AI can do the research for you, can help you segment it, but ultimately, you need some human intelligence to craft and tweak the message. But I completely agree with you. We've never before have been able to personalize like this.
Yeah. You mentioned signals and how important it is to really act on those. And I know LeadGenius has always been known for precision data, but I understand that you are also providing signals. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, this is something we've grown into for sure. But yeah, it's part of our core offering, but we tend to really provide them in a way that just folks can't find elsewhere on accounts and people that, yeah, they might be on LinkedIn. Yes, they might have some sort of presence, but we've been doing a lot for brick and mortar focused entities, people selling to those types of, it's really your hard to find information. You can get job changers and things like that on Apollo now. So when people go after unique data sets or they need global coverage, that's where our signals really end up being super impactful.
So we talked about like getting good data in, acting on it. That's part of the puzzle, right? Which is acting on really good quality data. But there's more to a good data strategy, like maintaining, et cetera. Have you seen some good best practices on how people are maintaining good, clean data?
Sure. Yeah, I think I'll go I'm going to just kind of widen the aperture a bit, Jeff, to this question, because in the same way that everyone is obsessed with net new logos, acquisition, so much budget goes to that. The same side of that coin is so much budget going to the data behind net new acquisition. But there's very little attention often paid to existing customers, finding upsell, finding expansion opportunities. In the same way, there's very little attention paid often to hygiene and keeping existing data accurate or tracking contacts that you've sold to. So I think the first thing is some of the most successful organizations we work with know the value and how much cheaper it is to grow and expand existing customers. They also know the value and how much cheaper it is to just keep data clean and actionable. And they make their bet on that. I've always been a fan of zig when the market zags, or at least trying to. At least try. I don't always get it right. I tried it. But if there's any sort of interesting strategy that I've seen really work for some of the orgs that we work with that have grown immensely, they focus on their customers. They focus on their existing data and they work to keep it accurate and clean. And while figuring out how to grow and expand existing relationships, while the rest of the market is focused on net new and activation. And then once they convert, they lump them into the existing customer bucket and they go and spend more money on acquisition. So that's kind of the first thing. If you're thinking about how to grow and expand customers and you're thinking about how to keep your data clean, you're in, I think, the top 10% of sophisticated orgs that have focused their energy there. Now, best practices, people change roles about 40% a year. Right? Roughly 10%, 10 to 15% of your data is changing every quarter. The old way would be, does your email still deliver? That would be the way that you would figure out is a person still at a company or not. Today, though, there's so much more that you can understand. When did that person leave? What new company are they at? Do they have a new title? Did they get promoted? Are they a tenured person? This is another really interesting one, looking at your existing data to figure out which people have been at their company for a long time Those are the people that guide you through procurement. Those are the people that have helped other companies sell into their org. They are massive allies to help you figure out how to navigate a sales process internally. That's one of the key medpic fields, right? It's like decision process, decision criteria, paper process. Those tenured people are critical. A lot of people miss that.
That's a good tip.
Right? So it's like,
Yeah.
And then your influencers. We call an influencer someone that their most recent previous company is a customer of yours. You know how long it takes a rep to figure that out? And if a rep's accounts, if someone was a customer at an account that's in a different rep's patch, they're going to miss it. They're going to never know that. So also looking at who on your existing file that might be someone that's tied to a logo that you don't own yet or you haven't won yet. What's their most recent company? And is it an existing customer? So these are the things where people have a mentality to look at existing data, keep it clean on a monthly or at least a quarterly basis, and then identify these different changes within that set to find new opportunities. Yeah. So that's a key one. A lot of people miss that. People don't think about it. Sexy. New logos are sexy. Everyone wants to ring the gong. But, the orgs that look at existing data, keeping it fresh, keeping it accurate, seeing changes, focus on growing and expanding existing customers, that's like you're in the top 10% if you're thinking that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's, like you said, it's not always super obvious on how you want to triangulate onto the quickest path to, let's say, a conversation or an opportunity. But I think working with vendors who know those tips and tricks and can guide you in the data strategy, I think makes a whole lot of sense. This audience is a mix of both large and small companies. We here at LeadGenius, we're certainly working with more smaller.
Great name, by the way, Jeff. Great name. I like the.
Yeah, I still get them confused.
You can slip away.
I'll still mix them up. But I think working with somebody who can consult you on the strategy makes a whole lot of sense. We're working with a lot of smaller B2B startups like Series A through D tops, but for the like Series A and Series B or even smaller startups who are just getting started, they don't want to boil the ocean with a whole bunch of data. They want to start small. Do you have any advice on how can you start small but start smart?
Start small but start smart. Well, I think a lot of the work initially should go into your account list. Who are you going after and why? And we've talked about some of the different signals that can help with that. But I think you will save yourself tons of time, energy, heartache, and pain by, I think if I could call it an analogy, starting small and starting smart also pertains to your account list. You don't need to go after every single account that you think could be a fit. Focus on 10, 20 that you can really wrap your arms around, especially if you're Series A. If you're just figuring things out, you maybe don't have a lot of existing customers and you only have a couple, but it starts looking at your customer account analysis. What makes those accounts tick? Why did they buy you? Who were you up against? What was happening in their business at the time that they purchased you? And then figuring out what signals or attributes then are definable and demonstrable when you think about that customer, and how do you then apply those signals and attributes to new accounts that you would want to win, and keep that number in the 2 figures and test those attributes. Figure out if that in fact is a signal that you can play off of and work on that product message fit or that market message fit and really go from there. So I think a lot of people miss the chance to analyze their customers, Jeff, like what made that account tick? What was happening in their business? Applying some of the signals and insights that we talked about to define a TAM. Apply those ones across your existing customers. See which ones pop. And there's lots of different AI tools out there today that can help you notice those trends or identify those trends and then use those to then build your account list off of and figure out what you want to go after and why. So it starts the account list, man. A lot of people have said this, like your go-to-market strategy is your list, or like your strategy is the list. There's a lot of truth to that. It's just today, it's much more than industry revenue headcount. It's signals and insights, analyzing those existing customers and applying them to the logos you want to win and going after the ones that are within an acceptable standard deviation of where your customers fall.
Yeah, no, I like that. That is spot on. I'm partial to it because it relates to one of the words that I probably overuse with all my clients, which is focus.
Totally.
If you can focus, that's half the battle. And that's all part of the orchestration data strategy. And since I know LeadGenius is really good at this, I'm kind of curious, is there anything that LeadGenius is up to that you're particularly excited about that maybe you'd want to show or share with everybody?
Yeah. There's a couple things. So the first thing is a lot of the data vendors in the space, they give you a credential to software and they kind of wish you luck, figure it out. You might hear from a customer service person or an account management person around the time of your renewal. They might be there to answer technical help questions for you, but a lot of them just, you get a credential to a database. I think one of the things that has always kind of differentiated LeadGenius, and one of the things that I enjoyed, is we have conversations like we're having with our customers, right? Where we'll say, well, like, what are we trying to get done here, guys? And that's part of our service. And thanks for the opportunity for the plug, but it's just like, you need a data strategist with you. And that's our whole model is you get paired with a team that becomes an expert in your use case. We help you figure out what data, insights, and intelligence you need. Yes, a lot of that comes from us. But the important thing is like, you could take our recommendations and go elsewhere, right? If you outgrow or if that time comes, but a lot of our customers choose to then leverage our data as part of that service, right? So a lot of the recommendations that we're making, there are things that we can really do to help beef up that strategy. And I'm proud of the fact that we'll engage with anyone and have these types of discussions, knowing that there is choice in the marketplace. But it's the fact that we are data strategists alongside you, I think is one of the main differences with us. We all live and breathe this versus your account manager or your rep at another logo. They're just trying to get the deal at one of our competitors. They're just trying to get the deal done, right? We focus on a strategy first approach. So that's one of the things we've always been up to. But there is one thing that I think is really cool. We've recently released what we call contact technographics. So we talked about account technographics. HG built with Date and Eyes, I believe ZoomInfo bought them years ago. These are all account technographics. Which companies are using which technologies? But we've seen a big turn to contact intelligence. One of the biggest turns we mentioned earlier in the last 12 months is show me who's visiting my website, not the account. 6sense, Demandbase, Abora, Clearbit. I don't want the account. Great. That was useful maybe in like 2010. I want to know who the people are and do they match my ICP? So you see our B2B, you see Instantly even release a feature like this. You see Vector. There's tons of different, they've really jumped into this, but it's identifying the contacts. And what we've released is contact technographics where we can tell you at a certain account who is actually responsible for deploying, maintaining, and building out certain infrastructure or software needs. So like folks come to us who are really going after developers. And if there's any of your customers, Jeff, this might be really interesting. Like anyone that is, if a developer is part of your ICP or an engineer or IT, that means there are people at that account or in that field that can either play around with your sandbox, upload test data, get a free account, but they're the engineers, they're the builders, right? If you're focused on those people, contact technographics tell you who within a specific account is actually responsible for that technology, deploying it, knowing how it runs, knowing how to set it up, knowing how to operate it and maintain it and track it, run observability programs around it, run optimization programs around it. We can tell you that now. And it's based off demonstrable signals, not a finger in the wind on what they might share in their LinkedIn profile, but what code are they deploying on GitHub? What is actually in their repository? What code are they delivering? And if the code isn't obviously one of those tools or infrastructures, we have ML that will then tie that code back to what we know is actually being practiced or deployed or engaged with. So that is really cool. So a lot of our customers that go after specific engineers or IT people that they want to have a certain skill set, this enables them to run really personalized messaging. It enables to target them like more directly than ever before with digital campaigns to drive them into try now or free demo instances or ecosystems. And we've been seeing a lot of success with that approach. So it's contact level technographics, I think, is one of the new waves in give me contact intelligence. Tell me what's going on with people, not just company.
Yeah, that's going to facilitate much better conversations. Now, does LeadGenius have a self-serve model, like where people can actually go in and manage their data in a UI? Is that anything you'd want to share?
Yeah, just for folks' knowledge. And yes, I mean, we have a self-serve solution. These are some examples of all the different types of data plays that we can run. And they kind of pull a lot of the signals and intelligence, both at the account and contact level we've been talking about. Look, a free sample is always part of our process. You want to be able to look and feel, deploy, manipulate the data. We're always happy to kind of understand what you're trying to solve for, what your challenges are, what objectives you have, and then recommend a data sample that we believe can help solve for that and go from there. And you can definitely come in and kind of play around on your own.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of different opportunities to really get at who you need to get at and what the angle is. So that's cool. So in closing, is there anything else you'd like the audience to know about either yourself or LeadGenius or what B2B marketers should know when it comes to scaling their data strategy?
We covered a lot, Jeff. I'll just say, like, hey, if there's anything in this conversation that piqued people's interest, happy to talk more about it and help in whatever way we can. We've got a great team over here, and I have conversations often that are just exploratory. Maybe we can't help. Maybe it's not something that we can deliver on, but chances are, because of our team's knowledge in the space, we can recommend a solution that'll work. So I offer that to your listeners here or your viewers, Jeff. If that would be helpful,
Sure.
more than happy to.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody listening to this to definitely reach out. Zeb knows data cold. Are you guys hiring right now?
Cold data cold. No, man. We are on a mission to double our revenue without hiring any headcount. I think it's possible. Given everything we talked about today, everything that is available in the marketplace, the way that our technology and technology overall with AI and everything has evolved, we believe we can do that without adding more people. We'll see.
That's the trend.
Yeah.
What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Email, zeb@leadgenius.com.
Yeah, great.
You can
Fantastic. And then I always ask, like in closing, there's one question that I always ask everybody, and that's this. When you think about scaling B2B revenue and doing it right, what's one important ingredient that comes to mind?
Account fit. You got to use that customer analysis, because if you got the wrong accounts, it doesn't matter what else you build on top of it. Doesn't matter the team you build, the data sources you leverage. You know, if you aren't focusing on the right fit accounts that look like your customers, it's all for naught. And yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think so too. Again, focus, right? Terrific. Well, thank you again, Zeb. It was great to reconnect. Thanks for sharing all your knowledge. And again, everybody, if you have a data challenge, reach out to LeadGenius. Reach out to Zeb. You now know how to get in touch with them. And again, thanks. I really appreciate it, Zeb.
Yeah, Jeff. Good stuff, man. Thank you for the time. Thanks for the opportunity. Bye, y'all.
You bet.
All right.
Bye.